in the psychology department and also the advisor of To Write Love on Her Arms, which is a group on campus that's done a lot of really great things this year. She is a writer and a creative thinker, and she is an excellent resource for our campus. So without further ado, I will let Jericho share her story.
Make it work. All right, so I think that on the program, the title of my talk is something like a story of a rape victim, something like that. And it's important to me, before I share with you some poems that I've written, to clarify that that's actually only part of the story. So that title's just a little bit misleading. And it's actually also a little bit misleading to consider what I'm sharing with you a personal diversity story, because it is personal. I was raped, actually, my first semester of college as an undergraduate, so it's very personal. But it's also a research story. Since then, I have conducted research on psychological aspects of rape. And even more importantly than that, not just a personal and a research story, it's also a community story. Something that a lot of people don't know is that on a college campus like Washburn, around 3% of young women are likely to be raped in a given semester. That means between Christmas break and fall or spring commencement, hundreds of the women that we know, that we go to classes with, that are our TAs, that are our friends in the dorms, are likely to be raped. And something even more surprising that a lot of people don't know is that rape estimates for men suggest that their victimization rates are similar. So it's not just a personal story, it's not just a research story, though I will share with you a little of my research. It's also a community story. Now, something else that makes this a community diversity story is research which suggests that having social support is one of the most important factors in individuals' ability to overcome trauma like rape. In other words, having somebody out there who believes you, who supports you, who's able to connect you to resources that may exist to find further support for you. Now, unfortunately, that simple thing of social support, which I think makes a lot of common sense, isn't always so simple. In fact, there are a number of barriers that exist for individuals to provide social support to those that they know who may have been raped or who may have experienced other trauma. Some of these barriers include things like having negative attitudes toward one of the sexes. Some of these barriers include things like believing that people just get what they deserve. However, given the statistics on rape victimization, it's likely that you or somebody you know has experienced that. And I can't believe that you think that your friends, when bad things happen to them, they just get what they deserve. I think that we care about our friends and we love our friends and we want to support our friends. Unfortunately, even for those of us here who are well-meaning, who want to offer that support, there are still barriers to actually offering that support. And one of the barriers that I want to talk with you today for just a few minutes about is the barrier of how we think about those individuals who have experienced rape. In fact, my own research suggests that for every 4 of you who would look at me and say that I am a rape victim, only 1 of you would look at me and say that I'm a rape survivor. Victim and survivor. What's the difference? Right? They're both referring to the same person, the same traumatic event. But in fact, they're very vastly different experiences. So to give you a little insight into what it means to be a victim, I'm going to read with you a poem that I wrote shortly after I was raped, my first year of college. A lovely piece of art. Together, we bought a clean, blank canvas. We purchased the softest brushes and hues. You, rumored artist, and I, novice, knew. Dipping brush tip into palest colors, I quietly trailed paint down one edge, shaping eggshell designs in creamy shades, finding my flow, waiting for you to join. Then you came in with harsh strokes and colors, your own bent-up bristles, a wild brush hand. You ripped the white with jagged red gashes, you split our infinite canvas in 2. With no regard for space, you claimed the whole. You ruined a prospective piece of art that could have been more lovely. than just you. So if you were really listening to that poem, then what you might have picked up on is that the experience of victimization is an experience of powerlessness. It's an experience that transcends that initial moment when the victimization occurred and continues. It's an experience of being stuck, of being powerless to move on, of being blind, of being voiceless, of being unable to overcome that trauma. And in fact, after I was raped, as I mentioned, I started doing research on the psychological aspects of rape. And what I found is that throughout the literature in psychology, I was seeing this victimization story told over and over and over again. I was finding research that showed that people blame those who are raped, that those who were raped experience psychological and physical traumas that I could spend all day listing out to you. I was seeing this oppression story reiterated over and over and over again. And I was contributing to this literature through my own studies. It wasn't until just a few years ago that I actually stumbled upon a smaller piece of the literature that showed a different side of the story. It wasn't all just about oppression and being stuck and feeling disempowered and voiceless. But there was a smaller piece of the literature which actually suggested that after rape, people can overcome the trauma. That after that kind of traumatic experience, people may have opportunities to grow even above and beyond what they were before the trauma. That in addition to changing themselves in positive ways, people with those kinds of traumatic experiences can also make community change, can also engage in change that affects society as a whole. And so I also want to share with you my experience as a survivor of rape with a second poem called Rising. I am stirring up the ashes where he left me, the embers where he let my broken body fall for death. He took what was not offered, my body and my power. He blackened out the sun, cut me deep, and made me blind, and everything was night. The bed on which he laid me was a bed of blood and dirt and fire. It was a bed of broken temple pillars with sheets of flame and pillows burning. But he didn't know that the bed on which he laid me was a glowing phoenix pyre. So I am burning and I am rising from the darkness where he took me, where he tried to smother all the good things with the ungood of his strength. Now I'm burning, we are burning, and I am rising, rise up with me. And like that golden bird of flame, we will illuminate the night. So if you are listening to those words, what you can see is that the experience of being a survivor is transcendent. It's an experience of empowerment, of finding one's voice, of being able to make positive changes. So what I would ask you today, as you're listening to the other diversity stories that are shared, as you're communicating with your friends, again, likely you know somebody who's had the same experience that I've had. As you're going about your daily lives, think of the people that you know who have experienced trauma not just as victims. Think about them additionally as survivors, but not just as survivors. Think about them as individuals who have their own goals, their own dreams, who have an existence and identity that is completely separate from and transcendent to that experience of trauma. And think about how they and how you share a story in this community at Washburn. Thank you.